Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone today for at a very unusual time for us, just a couple hours earlier than we usually hold these for our masterclass. But regardless, we are looking forward to the discussion today. It will be fun. It will be fast. We're looking forward to your questions because I'm sure there's a lot that we want to discuss with our guests, with our special guests, around how we can expand our impact. So before we bring our special guest on stage, we just want to give a brief intro on who we are. So we'll just bring the slides on board. So this is our bi-weekly scale masterclass, Scaling African Excellence Together. None of us can do this alone. And if we look at the agenda, it's just 60 minutes, less than even. Going through the welcome right now, we'll give you a short introduction to our scale framework, and then we jump right into the live Q&A. When we say Q&A, we really do mean it. So of course we have questions prepared, but we are very open and welcome your questions. The more questions you have, the less I have to talk. So it'll be great. So moving on, when we look at our scale framework, or why this masterclass, first of all. So, as Zer Consulting Africa, we consider ourselves a purpose driven organization, really looking to empower you, empower all of us as African businesses, as African leaders, sharing knowledge, sharing tools, sharing frameworks, and really finding a way to upskill the ecosystem, all of us as African entrepreneurs, to really build resilient, scalable businesses. And by scale, I really mean companies that can go toe to toe with global giants, also out of Asia, out of Europe, out of the Americas. And why do I do this? So I have been in your shoes. I am in your, I have walking your shoes. So I'm a founder myself. I've been a CEO for the last 5 years. First as a multinational, now recently, in the last couple of years, founded my own organization and company. I was a strategic investor in Africa for 3 plus years, so I understand how the strategic minds work. I worked 25 years just this month, actually, across 4 continents. Spent 20 plus of those years at multinationals, before going off on my own. And as part of that, developing our proprietary scale framework. And the most important point, the only point you need to remember, is that I consider myself an Afro optimist, and I'm looking to build other Afro optimists along with me. So, as part of this preparation for today's scale masterclass and for the previous ones we've had, we keep asking the same questions because we want to know from you, from our audience, which topics do you actually want to see us discuss each week. This week, you'll see that expanding your impact is just under 20%. It is what we will focus on this week. So, listening to your feedback and helping you to gain some of the tips and the practical advice that you want to hear. Now, what is the scale framework? So, what it is an adaptable 5 step roadmap to business transformation. So, financing being one thing, but if we don't build businesses that people want to invest in, the money will go nowhere. So, using our scale framework, how can we empower ourselves as African businesses to turn our visions into reality? So, what we do is look at 5 different areas. So, the first area we look at is strategize your vision. And so, what this looks at is really then knowing where you're headed. So, in order for you to know where you're headed, you need to build a map to get there. And that's what a strategy is. And then, in order to actually execute on that strategy, you need people. So, this is why in our next step is around champion excellence, really bringing the right people on board, being able to upskill those people so that together we can build the excellence that is needed. And for that to happen, leadership starts at the top. So, how are we uh, developing ourselves as leaders? How are we developing the people around us as leaders? Leaders build other leaders. And so, we're looking at accelerating exceptional leadership within our organizations. Next, corporate governance. that's been a hot topic, or become even a hotter topic as we go along, when we see some of uh, the mistakes that organizations around the world have fallen into in terms of a lack of corporate governance. So we look at, as a key pillar, our fourth pillar is to leverage governance for sustainable growth. And then, last but definitely not least, finally, and what we will discuss today, is about expanding our impact via growth capital. And capital, when people think of capital, many times they think of only money, but capital includes also social capital. So, in terms of the partnerships, the collaborations that we need to build to really tackle the rather large challenges we have on the continent. So with that, I want to jump right into our Q&A, and we'll be bringing to the stage our special guest today, who is Anil Atmaramani, who's a partner, one of the newest partners at Antler, based in Lagos, Nigeria, and he will share insights with us from his experience building, scaling, and exiting businesses across Africa and beyond. And Anil and I go back a couple years. Been interacting. It's been great coming across Anil and adding him to my network. So it's I've been really excited. I've been telling him that I'm so excited to bring him on board. This is our final session before we go on summer break. So I think Anil is a great way to close that off, because he's had so many interesting experiences, not just across Africa, but also abroad. So, Anil, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for the time that you're sparing us. We're happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the accommodation and the time. That was actually my fault. Thank you so much for being so gracious with that.
Yeah, well, it's all about flexibility. That's how we can be flexibility as Africans. So, Anna, let's jump right into it. I'd love to hear about your journey. I mean, I know all about it because we've talked through it a number of times, but I'm sure the folks with us would love to hear how your journey began and how it became, even before the startup became all the rage and such a buzzword. I don't want to take all the glory from you, but founding a delivery service already 20 years ago.
Yeah.
How did this all happen?
Well, I think I'd like to tell my story from the first time I visited Nigeria. I actually came to Africa, which is in '98. Abacha was still alive. He died a week after I showed up. So coincidence, but but all kidding aside, that's how long my relationship with Nigeria has been in place. So from '98, I was here till about 2000, 2003, if I'm not mistaken. Just kind of a young guy traveling the world. And then I moved back home to Canada, where in 2000, after trying a couple of things and not succeeding, and I need that to be part of the story because it's
Yeah,
not the
thank you.
first time that you strike gold. I tried a couple of things that didn't necessarily work, but on my third attempt, I started the first restaurant delivery service in Canada. This is in 2005. So yeah, going back 20 years. So your Chowdex or your Glovos, but in a time before smartphones. And it was called Dial to Dine, and we built out this company. It was called Dial to Dine because you literally had to call someone to place an order for food back then.
We're
But
showing our age, folks. Yay.
I have the gray to show for it. So yeah. So yeah, that was my first successful venture. Built it, scaled it. It just took off. The first year and a half was a struggle trying to get people on board with the idea, but then I couldn't just put the genie back in the bottle, and eventually sold it 5 years later to a larger player that came to the Canadian market and recognized our positioning there. So I sold out that company, I took all that money, invested it in real estate, wanting to do an Airbnb for corporates kind of model. That was the next business I had in mind. What I didn't know, and there's just so much you could fill a room with what I didn't know, or I still don't know, is after leveraging myself so heavily, taking all that cash and putting it into these real estate deals. Um, if I had any one apartment empty for anything over a couple of months, I basically had to start paying out of pocket for with an income I didn't have. So
Mm.
that brought me back to I started to look for opportunities, and I reached out to friends and family, and I got called back into Nigeria to turn around a business that was looking for somebody that had the entrepreneurial skill but needed some Nigerian context. I was able to come do that successfully.
When was
And
this?
sorry,
What year was this?
2010, the end of 2010. So just as soon as I
2010.
sold my company, 3 months after that,
Mm-hmm.
I moved back here, and I've been here since. The first decade that I worked with that company, a couple of years on the original project, which is packaging. It was turning around the company, making it profitable, and then I spent the remainder 8 years pitching ideas to this family office and saying, "Hey, I have this idea. This is the capital required. Can we do this? Can we do that?" And they fortunately supported me through many, many different opportunities, such as we were doing uh, insulated roofing sheets, which is the first of its kind to basically keep the heat out on the tin roofs that you see, or the aluminum roofs that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved on to agro-allied businesses, which is cold oil extracts of sesame oil and groundnut oils for exports out of Nigeria. Then I tried my hand at manufacturing or assembling solar panels. This is in 2016, which ultimately failed. Uh, and then I moved on to FMCG, which is 2018. We did cassava chips, which is like a potato chip replacement. So it looks like Lay's, it feels like Lay's, but it's actually cassava because Nigeria is the largest grower of cassava.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes COVID, and I'm asked to return capital, and they are done with their investments. That was a kick to the gut,
Mm-hmm.
because like you, I'm an optimist, and I believe that given time that this would work better, regardless of the currency issues or the general condition around COVID. But my benefactor was an elderly gentleman, and COVID, I think, just kind of just shook him to the core and just said, "Okay, this is time to now retire." So then kind of did what was asked of me and reinvented and thought to myself, what can I do with all this experience? And decided to set up a consulting firm that specialized in providing operating partner as a service to venture capital firms. And over the next 4 years, I got exposure to over 100 different companies, um, learning so many different problems in the space, in the VC space, whether it is product market fit, whether it's founder product fit, or basically just kind of like rapidly absorbing these intakes. And then one day, in a moment of deep frustration, I wrote a white paper called "Why the Typical Venture Investments Don't Work in Africa and Why the Venture
Mm-hmm.
Studios Model."
And that's
And
become quite a topic, hot topic nowadays. Yes.
yeah, and that paper landed me on Antler's map, and eventually
Mm-hmm.
to make partner there, because they aligned with everything that I had written. And my partner from Kenya, Marie, you've met her, and she's is absolutely wonderful. Read the paper and called me up and said, "Hey, I want to talk about your paper, and I want you to know that 70% of it is absolutely right, and 30%, brother, you've got it so wrong." So she
Not bad.
educated, yeah, not bad at all. And the 30% that she educated me over convinced me that the work that we do at Antler is the right way.
Wow, wow. So, and I see already some of the comments, really finding your journey amazing. And what I love about the way that you tell your story, battle tested entrepreneur plus Afro optimist. So people are enjoying the story. And what I love about the way that you tell your story, Anil, is that you make a point of emphasizing the fact that you have stumbled and failed quite a number of times in these 20 plus years. And I'd like to dig into that a bit more and just think about, or if you could talk to us a bit about how your personal understanding and your approach to growth capital, that term growth capital that we hear so often, has evolved throughout that whole entire journey. And and I love the focusing on the one thing. So, what's the one lesson, key lesson about capital you wish you knew back then, maybe in '98 when you were this young kid running around Nigeria?
To re-emphasize, you could still fill a room with what I don't know, and what I didn't know back then was even more intense. I tell people that for my first venture, I self-funded it myself. The capital requirements was $25,000 to set up my restaurant delivery service, and I didn't know that raising capital was a thing. So that's how uninformed I was. But the one key learning, if you say this now, 20 years later, with a lot of gray in my beard and a lot of learnings in life, I will say that the one thing that I've learned is that it's not a one size fits all. There is no one capital for everyone, right? Businesses at different stage require different types of capital, whether it's venture, whether it's PE, whether it's debt, grant. They all fall in depending upon the business's requirement at that time. And entrepreneurs, founders should not just run after the first capital that is available to them. They should
Mhm.
really vet it based on their business requirements. What is the right kind of capital, and then double down on sourcing that kind of capital.
Love that. So, not a one size fits all, which I think is part of the discussion, and perhaps what you built into your white paper, which I don't think I've actually read. So, we'd love to get a link and share that later for the benefit of our audience. And again, to our audience, please, you're already hearing the gems that Anil is dropping here. Ask your questions, probe further. This is an opportunity to speak directly to our partner at Antler, and we'll hear more about what Antler does in case you might be one of the few people who haven't heard of this organization. So, I know back to my questions here, as even as we wait for others to raise their own. So, beyond simply raising funds, what's the fundamental difference from your perspective in expanding impact within the African context? So we're looking at the impact-driven philosophy guide that guides Antler Africa's investment decisions. And as part of that, perhaps you just take a step back first and explain, maybe for folks who haven't heard of Antler, what is Antler's value proposition? What makes you different from some other? I won't name what you are. Let me name yourself. Other investment opportunities.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that. So, Antler is a global VC firm. We operate in 30 different cities worldwide, 24 countries, if I'm not mistaken. We are the largest inception VCs worldwide. We recently had two unicorns in our portfolio within a week, so that was amazing. We have over 1,500, so 1,500 companies on our portfolio worldwide, with those 30 cities that I mentioned. Um, and what we do different is we come in at inception levels. We come in at the earliest stages of the business. And what we're looking for is deep domain expertise, people that want to solve a problem in a space that they are well aware of, and want to build, and basically just have this idea that they want to explore, kind of build up on. And it doesn't matter if you're a little further along and you have a beta or you have an MVP, we still consider that inception. You apply to Antler. That there are multiple screening processes that we have in place, because it is extremely competitive to get into it. The first Legos cohort, we received over 7,800 applications, and our
Wow.
cohort size was just 24. So that was a 0.031% acceptance rate. Um, and
So
because
just to emphasize, for people who missed that, 7,800 applications, and he had to whittle it down to 24. We'll have to figure out how you did that later.
because there's a cost to us when we bring somebody into the residency. We pay them a stipend. We give them these tech tools. So we pay $1,000 a month for each founder. We give up to $400,000 worth of tech tools. We give out office spaces. We put in all these entrepreneurs in uh, rather, we connect them with any industry leaders, experts that they may need to speak to. which is basically all kind of like our goodwill capital, right? Which is again cap when you said the different kinds of capital.
Exactly.
We have to leverage this network. We have to be collaborative. We have to call on friends and well wishers and say, hey, we have this idea. We want to run it by you. So there's with the exception of probably bringing their grit, their knowledge, and their expertise, everything else that they require to build out the business is tested during this residency program. And at the end of it, they get to pitch for a chance for $100,000 investment, which is the way that we choose to do it. And at this time, we truly are backing the founder because we don't know what the business is going to look like. It can
Mhm.
evolve, market conditions can change. There's not enough metrics that you can look on month growths and make those determinations. So that's how early we come in, and this is the space that we thrive in. So I get the privilege to work with such brilliant minds for 2 months and get a keen insight on their business. And my partner Lola and I, who are based out of Lagos, uh, we absolutely thrive on this. So that's about Antler. Now to answer your question, I have a hot take on this that's gonna probably land me in a little trouble, but we're with
Please,
friends,
we love these.
so I'm gonna take a shot at this, right? When we're talking about impact and the whole thing, my view on it is. Impact in Africa is a byproduct of capitalism. That's my personal view. This is not representation of the company at large, but this is just my personal view. And this ties into the idea that you give a man a fish and he eats for a day, and you teach someone to fish and he eats for a lifetime. Um, we have seen impact programs come into the African space that have come and distributed palliative measures or what have you, and the impact of that is a reducing curve. It doesn't
Yeah.
last over a period of time, and this is the reason why I'm so bullish on what we do. Is because at Antler, when we come and kind of support this entrepreneur built out this vision, this business, they employ people. The people that they employ support their families. Those families send their kids to school, and so on and so forth. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we do, uh, without putting impact at the forefront of our endeavor. We do recognize the impact that it has as what we're trying to build. So yes, at the expense of sounding like a cold-blooded capitalist, I'm going to repeat that all impact, in my opinion, is a byproduct, and we should focus on creating more business, more opportunities for entrepreneurs in our space, and by doing that, there is more possibility for these guys to support themselves. But to answer the third part of your question, if I recall correctly, is growth capital is a catalyst for systemic change, right? Like, so that's the number one thing that I said about this.
Mhm.
But I also do feel like when you said that there are different kinds of capital, uh, Africa's growth needs more than just capital.
Mm.
You require founders that can collaborate. You require infrastructure. You require networks. You So there's so many different aspects to this particular answer, but yeah, we believe in creating businesses that have long lasting impact, uh, that will basically drive the economic engine forward, so to speak.
Right. Okay. So less reliance on government, less reliance on aid, but using business as a catalyst for our economic development, economic and social
Self-preservation.
development.
Yeah, self-preservation will always overtake the human instinct, right? Like, so this statistic always blows my mind. So one of the highest levels of entrepreneurship in the world is in Asia, and we have seen what they have been capable of over the last couple of decades. And
Mhm.
entrepreneurship clocks at 13% there. In Nigeria, it's 40%. So if you think about it, this also kind of ties into the idea that there probably are not enough jobs available, so people do think of entrepreneurship as a viable option to self sustain or to provide for their families. And we just want to take that and say, okay, how do we industrialize this? Like how do people make money, or how do people get hired? And yeah, that's the long and short of my answer. I can go off on a tangent, and I'm just trying to reel myself back in.
No, no, and I'd love to hear people's reactions to that. So the fact that I tend to hear a lot of blaming and shaming going on with various organizations, typical government organizations, etc. But how do we take responsibility as business? Want to hear thoughts from the audience. And we can also probe this topic further. What do you think it is? Is it really, do we need the government to move forward, or can we do this ourselves as businesses and as entrepreneurs? What do you think? Please drop your comments in the comment box. So as we wait for comments, as we wait for questions, I'd like to move on to my next question. And this is about, and you touched a bit on this, this whole day zero. That if you go to your website, you see that really like day zero investors. And you use an interesting term here, inception VC. I have to admit, that was the first time I've heard that term. So for aspiring African entrepreneurs, so now we're hearing that all I need to do is have a cool idea. I don't even need a deck. I just have to have this wonderful idea. I can call Anil up, and then he'll fund me. He'll give me $100,000. Okay, great. So, but all jokes aside, what are the critical first steps as a new entrepreneur to really become investment ready? And I say investment ready because I don't like it when people say investor ready. You're trying to get yourself ready to be invested into with the proper and the right capital, rather whether it be financial or social, and not trying to get ready for a particular person or VC fund, etc. So, what are those critical first steps? How can a new entrepreneur effectively articulate their vision to attract early stage support, like other inception VCs like Antlers?
um, the simple answer, or Adeolu, if you want to know, you need to join the Antler program. I mean,
This
but
is supposed
no,
to be a peak, a secret peak of the Antler program.
I'm kidding. Of course, I don't gatekeep. So what it is first and foremost is, are you able to articulate your idea? And cohesively, like basically, this is what I want to do, this is the problem that it actually solves, and this is the way that my solution would potentially solve this. So a very clear idea of the problem space that you're trying to tackle, followed by a very clear version of the solution that is going to solve that particular problem. The
Mhm.
next step would be to determine the market size, because if there are essentially five people on the entire continent that are affected by that particular specific problem, then you better charge like $100 million to each one of them to be able to solve that issue. And there's nothing wrong with that model. That also works. I'm just saying that that's the market size. So you have to determine um, the market size, and how fast and how much you could grow with this. And the last arc that I think that comes after this is there a customer that is willing to pay for that solution the way that you think about it? And I think it's a combination of all of these things that come together that makes a solution viable from a investment perspective, because you have articulated the problem, you've articulated the solution, and that why you are the only one that can solve it, or not only one, but have your unique special sauce that can solve that problem, that this is a large market problem, that there's a problem big enough, and that I have validated with a small portion of that crowd, that they are willing to pay, whether it's a hundred naira, whether it's $100. The amount almost doesn't matter, but just the willingness to buy your services. And if you take all of this together, I think that's the best way to kind of set the foundation for what you believe is a bankable business.
Okay, good. So what I was hearing through all of that is clarity. So clarity around the problem, clarity around the solution, clarity around the target market and what the size of that target market is, and clarity around what customers are willing to pay. because you can have the first three, but if no one's willing to pay for your solution, then, well, maybe you don't have the right solution actually.
So I will just change the last one to clarity on the first three, yes, but maybe
Mhm.
validation or validity on the last one.
Okay.
Because you can have a clarity that, listen, I think these people want to pay, but if those people are your friends and family, then that's not a validation of the market's willingness to pay. So I think I would just kind of like twist it towards the end.
Okay. Okay. So clarity on the first three, clarity on the problem solution and the market size, validation around the customer.
Yes.
I see some questions. Thank you, Anna. I see some questions already popping up. So let's touch on the first question. The first question was around if you could touch a little on partnership management. It's a bit vague. So if you can go off that, or maybe we ask Precious if you could please clarify your question a bit. I see it popping up, but Precious, if you could just please add some context to the question. In the meantime, we'll go to the next question. Question from Philip. So, as someone who has built, and you can see it up there, and still building strong business in the African Nigerian business climate, what are the core values and skills to not just survive, but to grow in the Nigerian context? So, they're very emphasizing the Nigerian context as you have done this successfully over and over again. By the way, watch your TED Talk. Yes.
Yeah.
So, we'll
Well,
drop the TED Talk, link to the TED Talk, and we'll drop a link to the white paper. Over to you,
okay.
Adam.
um, Grit, Philip. That's all, because oh my God, entrepreneurship is hard to begin with, but Nigeria is going to test you, as it's tested me, as it tests everyone. I make this joke, and I say it from a perspective of like, this is my home now, right? This is where I live. This is where I hope to grow old. But I say this joke that Murphy's Law was written when Murphy was stuck at Murtala Mohammed Airport for 3 days trying to get a flight out. He probably just landed on transit, and then everything that could go wrong went wrong, and he just penned that down, and that's now become nomenclature. Because yes, for the lack of infrastructure, for the lack of NEPA, for the lack of anything else that we have, these things will test you more than other places. When we were buying machines for the time that I would do business, or real sector businesses, I would always tell the Taiwanese, the Chinese, the Germans, whoever we would buy machines from, that you have to build a machine that can survive the constant power surges and on and off. And they're like, why would we need to do that? Because they can't conceive of a world
Mm.
where power is not stable in an industrial zone. So when you tell them that, listen, 4 times a day we have to change over from a generator to this, and we require battery backups, they would look like at me like I had two heads, and then this conversation would need to be explained. So when they build machines, they build it for optimization, and when they're building machines for Africa, they're building it to kind of combat these issues that we fundamentally have. So grit, Philip. The answer is, you have to want to do this even on days that you don't want to do it. Yeah, that's my best answer for that question.
I love that grit. And also going back to what you said before about one size doesn't fit all. So just because something works in one market doesn't mean that it'll work in our market here. Uh, so I'd like to move on to, and you touched a bit when you mentioned the word real sector, and maybe just for folks who don't understand what real sector means, or otherwise known as tech light innovations. I think that's the terminology that Antler uses. So how can African entrepreneurs in sectors like agriculture or manufacturing effectively position their tech light or real sector ventures to attract capital, emphasizing their scalability and impact, even without being purely tech driven? And I'm a bit biased with that question because I do feel, and we've talked about this, Anil, that um, many of the emphasis of at least the VC firms seems to be about tech, 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 tech. And I state quite loudly that it's not technology that's going to build our roads. It's not technology that's going to power our factories. It's not technology that's going to educate our children. Probably will support all of those, but it's not a computer. So how do we address concerns from people who are actually in the real sector?
Um, so funny enough is, I agree with what you summarized. but in the past tense, because more and more I'm having conversations with my colleagues in the space who now are looking at the real sector, tech light innovation
Okay.
sectors, and saying, you know what, this is an opportunity and that we should consider it. And we might be the first ones to pull the trigger on this. We have a couple of companies on our portfolio from Kenya, because we just launched in Lagos. Uncover, if you haven't heard of this company, it's a skincare product that is made especially for darker skin. And we have another company called Carfresh, which is a brilliant innovation by a gentleman who basically harvest the oils from longer lasting vegetables to extend the shelf life of vegetables that go bad faster. So it's a purely organic solution
Mhm.
for extending shelf life of flowers, that come in from Netherlands. You want to ship them over, you just spray this thing
Mhm.
on it, and because it's purely organic, it extends the life. And these investments were made at a time that these businesses were not considered venture, quote unquote, venture scalable.
Yep.
But I don't think that that's the lens anymore. I think more and more companies are now recognizing that there is an opportunity here. And the simplest way that I go around explaining it to anyone that I meet is that if there's a poultry farmer out there that has figured out how to get a chicken to lay two eggs instead of one, it is investable. Like a venture cap, I will invest. Because it solves a real problem in the African context. Food scarcity is a major issue, and this would potentially double the chicken's output. So why not? Um, but to circle to your point, I do think that the tide is changing, and more investors are now beginning to see that Africa has very African problems, right? And a lot of it is infrastructure, is based on infrastructure. And before we can start selling, e-tickets on an app for a railway ride, we need to build the rails, and then we need to get the trains on them, and then get that functional. So uh, building rails might not be cool, it might not be tech, but it is essentially what is going to drive the railway network before we can get to the point where we could start selling tickets and other things off an app. So yes, I think a lot of money is coming into infrastructure, or at least the thinking around that is happening. People recognize that we have to spend money on logistics. We have to take bets on infrastructure, whether it's electricity, etc., for the greater good.
I'm actually really happy to hear that that investors, professional investors, are starting to see that yes, we do have very real problems in Africa that need to be solved before we can focus on tech. I see a number of questions starting to fly in. I will take one. So this is going back to Precious' question around partnerships, and so he's expanded further to ask, as it relates to other forms of growth capital, I believe we can also expand our impact, you can see it on the screen, via social capital, which includes partnerships. So again, emphasizing social capital rather than only financial capital. So the question is, how can we leverage, secure, and manage long-term partnerships for growth and impact? Very, very valid question. Thank you, Precious.
Precious, that is an amazing question, and I feel like my view on this would be that partnerships are driven by a shared vision. Uh, so not everybody's going to buy into your vision of what it is that you want to build and how you want to build it. But great partnerships come out of finding like-minded people in your space, or in adjacent spaces that have a value off the back of what you are building. Because again, like I said, self-preservation will always trump that instinct, and we want to partner with companies, founders, investors, ecosystem builders, where we feel that partnering is going to help us. So unfortunately, in many spaces I've been on the receiving end of conversations where people are pushing their value proposition without really understanding what is our value proposition and how the two of them merge so that both of us can benefit from this. And I think that's what good partnerships are made of.
Yeah. that win-win solution, right? What's in it for me? What's in it for you? What's in it for us?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely, 100%. Nailed it on
yeah.
the such a nicer way to say that. I just see. I told you I go off on tangents occasionally.
Well, but people are enjoying the discussion. I see all the questions continue to fly in. I will take the next question from Tunji. This sort of steps us back to what you said around traditional versus tech businesses. And if you can bring that up on screen, if you had to start all over again today, especially in Africa, which one would you go for or why? So tech versus traditional.
I will tell you that I did both, right? Like, I mean, technically, my tech business is what I'm doing right now, and traditional, I spent a certain amount of time. Uh, this just goes to say that I'm truly sector agnostic. I'm not married to the idea of tech or tech light. I'm just looking for innovation. And let me kind of like put a little bit more definition into that
Hmm.
idea of what
Please.
innovation looks like, because if you are building a AI chatbot today, I'm sorry to say, but that's not innovation in my opinion, because it's done and dusted. It's kind of like reached to a point where the business, there are companies out there that are kind of doing this and they're doing it really, really well. Innovation for me would be, what are you building that is going to be relevant a year from today? And you have the vision to kind of conceive of a concept that doesn't exist in the space today. Because when you go in this early and you go in for ideas, you it's going to take you some time to get it right. It's going to take you some time to build it out and to test it, and the market's going to push back. And to quote Mike Tyson, a personal hero of mine, is everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face, and the market's
One of
going
my
to punch
favorite
you back.
quotes, by the way, even though I'm not a boxing fan.
Yeah, the market's going to punch you back in the face. That's a fact. So it's going to take you a year to be able to get the product right. And in a year from now, your product needs to be not only relevant, but it needs to be innovative then. To kind of look back at my career, the cassava chips was unheard of. Like, nobody was doing it, even though it's a staple dietary. I can't say that had the vision or I dreamt it up. It's a staple in Indonesia. It's a staple
Mm.
in Peru. People eat cassava chips, and I just looked at that and said, why not here? Uh,
Hmm.
the solar panel manufacturing thing. Man, if I just held on to that business, would have made a killing. But like I
Mm.
said, we lost money on that one because we were early. 2016, solar was not a thing
Yeah, it's not
in
popular. Mm.
Nigeria. But we had to look ahead of the curve, because we knew it takes a couple of years to kind of get that right. The oil exports, people have been talking about value addition on agro for years, but how many people actually do it? We were doing this in 2013 or so. Yeah, for me, that's the view that I take. So innovation needs to be what is around the curve, not what is visible today. Then that's not innovation, because if it's visible to you, it's visible to everyone. Then people are already building in that space, and there might be better minds with better funding. There might be a kid in the U.S. in Stanford that has more resources, and that opportunity would pass us by.
Yeah. So if I follow your train of thought, so just because it's AI doesn't, or just because you tag AI in the title doesn't mean that automatically that's innovative.
No, absolutely not. I'm actually very skeptical of anything that I read like AI enabled, because I know what that means. I'm getting my tech chops tested nowadays with like more and more time that I spend with founders and learning so much from them. I know what it means. But like, if you truly have like an AI solution, I don't know. I'm hypothesizing here. Like, you basically take a pill and it just kind of goes through your digestive tract and gives you an AI report the next day. Like, that's innovation. It might be an extreme example, but to say, hey, I've got this thing that replies your emails for you, no. So does 100 different tools today, right?
Right. 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 I love that. So there's a question here which would be very simple. Someone wanted to know the name of the startup around the vegetable businesses. I assume that that's one that you mentioned that extends the shelf life. That's
Yeah,
probably
so
the
it's
one.
called Kafresh, Kafresh, but I think that they've recently rebranded, so the name would have changed. But if you Google Kafresh, I'm sure it would come up.
KA.
Fresh, so fresh.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, car fresh,
yeah,
car fresh. Okay, okay. So we'll look it up and we'll drop it in the chat box. And while we're doing that, I want to actually ask a question to the audience. So you've heard a lot of guidance from Anil today from Antler. And we've talked about different types of capital, both financial and social capital, and getting investment ready. So, for you in the audience, what is the single biggest hurdle you're facing right now when it comes to securing the right growth capital? Remember what Anil said, that it's not, not all capital is the same. We shouldn't be running after capital. It's not all about getting VC dollars. So, what is the biggest hurdle you're facing right now when it comes to securing the right growth capital for your business? And so just please, if you could share your thoughts in the chat, and we'll see some of those comments come up in the chat box. And this might be the name of the company, CarFresh. Perhaps they've rebranded. Does that look familiar, Anil?
yes, the name is so I'm quite literally doing this as we speak, and I think that uh, the first
So I'm seeing CO Valley Tech up.
yes,
Is what
that's
I've.
the name of the company, and that I think they've
Okay.
now changed it.
Okay.
Carfresh is their
Okay. Great, great. So, so as we're hearing what our biggest challenges are, and sharing those, this is a space where we're all facing interesting problems, interesting challenges, and so let's please share so that we know that we're not alone. So I know, based on what you've said, and what I know as well, you're roll up the sleeves type of guy. I mean, the whole idea that you had a consulting company around operating partner as a service tells me that automatically, because being an operating partner is all about your hands-on approach. So, can you share a specific example of how hands-on operational support, so beyond capital, was pivotal to one of your venture success. Because I think one of the things that founders forget is that in terms of looking for the right investor, it's also looking for an investor who can give more than just money. So perhaps you have an example you can share.
so I'm going to try to sidestep this as to give a specific example. Uh, there's an odd chance that it might be too informative on the founders of the work or the model or the assumptions, and so I'm just going to sidestep that. But what I can say about
Hmm.
this, one of the things that I have noted in my line of work is that uh, most startup founders don't quite realize that a startup is still a business, that it needs to be a business. It needs to operate as a business, right? People
Hmm.
come in and they have this idea, and they're like, "Oh, let's just build at any cost. Let's take investor funds, or let's take growth capital, or let's take human capital, whatever it may be, and just throw it at the problem, and eventually this is gonna crack." Um, in my opinion, what early stage ventures in Africa actually need is like a distribution strategy, a unit economic support, team building and execution support, regulatory and navigations. So this is the value that I think a lot of companies require that they should get from their mentor networks, from their support networks. And or join apply to Antler, but because this is where a lot of the businesses suffer because they have not anticipated the unit economics correctly, or they've failed to prepare for statutory, and government comes out with the regulation that basically obsoletes your business model overnight because you hadn't anticipated this, or you didn't speak to the proper advisors, whether the legal or statutory etc. So yeah, I think that would be the more generic answer I can give you as opposed to something specifically.
And I understand that we of course we want to protect people's confidentiality, etc. So I appreciate what you were able to share. So I see another question coming in from Precious. And Precious, before I take your question, I want to sort of kick it off with moving to collaboration, because it looks like this question is again. And so Precious is focusing on collaboration and partnership today, which I think is great, a place that people forget. So how do you see the development of strong collaborative ecosystems? So we're talking about founders, we're talking about investors, we're talking about even competitors, or collaborative competition as a distinct and powerful form of growth capital. And how does Antler foster this collaborative spirit?
So we are no man is an island. It cannot be done alone. That's a fact. So we are big into collaboration. We're here today at your invitation, which is a form of collaboration. Immediately after, I have to head somewhere else for another event, which is part and parcel of it. We're just looking for partners. To Precious's previous point, we're looking for partners that can benefit from Antler, and who we can benefit fit from. Today, you're exposing me to all these wonderful people that I haven't had a chance to either hear about Antler or myself, and I'm deeply grateful for that. Um, from the work perspective that we do, we very heavily leverage on our network and our collaborations. If you've seen my LinkedIn post for the first cohort, we had Tayo Vusi come in from Paga. We had a few other supporters that came in for our investor readiness. We actually tapped on a few VCs. Friends, and say, hey guys, we might be biased and maybe drinking our own Kool-Aid. How about you kind of give um, take a fresh look at this, and give the founders your honest feedback outside us, right? So you can just basically go nuts and say, hey, this was a terrible idea, this was really good, and all that comes from collaboration. But
Hmm.
like earlier, collaboration has to be based on the idea of mutual respect for what you can do for them as well. And
Yep.
when we're cashing these chits, we know very well that when I'm called, I will be there to pay it back.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. So mutual respect being a key thing, and again, that win-win, and that spirit of sharing and giving. Um, Sharing is caring, as I like to tell my kids. So that applies not just to the kindergarten, but also applies to the business world as well. At least to the world that we want to build.
Yeah,
So as
as
Mhm.
as fellow consultants, I always in my consulting days, I had this rule that every meeting has to end with a gift that you give unsolicited. Like, it could just be an idea, it could just be a piece of advice, it could just be an insight onto this. And what that does is it firms up the relationship, that people understand that you are not just a taker, but you also are open to giving. And I think that goes a really long way.
And in the spirit of giving, I do want to take this probably our final question. So you've talked about the successful exits and the failures, but on this question, we'll focus on the successful exits in your career. So for growth stage African SMEs and founders aiming for long-term sustainable impact, hopefully that's all of us. How important is an exit strategy from the outset, even as you're seeking growth capital? And how can we strategically position our ventures to ensure attractive outcomes for investors while still fulfilling our vision for African development? That was a
Oh,
mouthful.
it's
Got it?
yeah, a bit, yeah. But the short version of this is that it's extremely important. Startups or businesses look at investors, and I think take it for granted, more or less, that an investor doesn't have a business to protect. As investors, we have LPs in our fund, and we also have a responsibility to return their money and then some, right? Like, that's the whole
Mm,
point
yeah.
of what we do. So when we invest in businesses, or when we talk to business owners, we want to be able to have that vision of how the exit is going to look like. Now, exits can look like anything. It could be a successful IPO, in which case I'm all grins and smiles. But it could also just be especially if you're in the tech light sector, it could be a a massive or a good dividend paying mechanism, that one could argue would just be as good an outcome as it can be. If you get 2x 3x the money that you put in, not everything has to be a 300x, like a money point return for some of the VCs. But if you get a good amount of return, static returns from even the real sector businesses, that's a good outcome in my head. So again, not there's no one size fits all, but everybody has to think about how they scale their businesses and how they return their investors' funds. As long as you have clarity on that, which ties into what I said early, which is how do you make money, or is there a willingness to pay? If there's a willingness to pay, your margins are good enough, then these things are an eventuality. You can scale, and exits become very, very clear.
Okay, I know. Thank you for that. So, what I'm hearing throughout the themes for today is that not one size fits all. We have to think about what are we trying to build, and be clear about that. So clarity would be the other sort of running thread through the conversation, not one size fits all, and clarity, clarity, clarity. So thank you. I know that we're reaching the end of this hour, and you have other pressing responsibilities. Other questions will come, but we will try to respond to all of those post this event. So I know. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you so much for having me. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you to your audience for taking the time. I enjoy the interaction.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, have a great summer break.
You too.
Welcome to join us in Turkey.
Take care.
Yes, yes. So if we go back to the presentation just quickly, thank you everyone for joining us today. We stressed today on the E part of scale, but as you can see from the slide, this is not a linear process. You don't do strategy once and then forget about it. You don't hire people once and forget about them. You don't learn how to lead and then you've known everything, and so forth. So today we focus on expanding your impact for growth capital, but this all flows into strategizing, to championing, to accelerating, to leveraging. And this you can access all of this using our scale scorecard. You can see the QR code there. We also will drop the link in the comments so that you can go from there. And it's just 25 questions. Will take you 3 minutes to be able to self-assess and receive immediately a score as to where you fall along these 5 pillars. And finally, we have our book. You will receive as an attendee, as a participant today. Very active participation. Thank you, everyone. A link to the PDF, but of course, the book. For those of you who prefer hard copies, those are available on Amazon. And if you happen to be in Nigeria, you can also order from Woven Heights. So, with that, I thank you, everyone, for the conversation today. It has been a lively one. Anil has been able to give us his thoughts and his learnings from 20 plus years of building, scaling, and exiting businesses, not just in Africa, but beyond. So, again, thank you for joining us today. This will be our final session for the summer, and we look forward to picking the conversation back up and seeing you in September. Bye, everyone.